is important that government take necessary steps to block leakages, to ensure that people that are given trust in leadership did not abuse offices, did not also turn their offices into a commercial or a business venture in the name of public service for their personal interests. That is why every year, Transparency International is making effort to show gaps in each country's effort to deal with corruption. And here in Nigeria, we have a number of issues that we believe are responsible for undermining even the efforts of government in fighting corruption. And therefore, Transparency International Nigeria, which is CISLAC, always want to support effort of government to ensure that we block leakages. Transparency International and Transparency International Nigeria, or CISLAC, is not in any way computing or undermining effort of government. Rather, we are actually supporting our government to succeed, to block leakages. So it is important that government officials understand that civil society are partners in progress. Civil society want to support our government to succeed. Civil society provides all the necessary technical and well-researched evidence to show gaps in the effort to block leakages in the fight against corruption. It is important to make this statement because we are not politicians, we are not opposition people. We are interested in seeing our country progress because corruption has done incredible damage to our reputation, to our country. The level of insecurity we see is associated with also the corruption. You will see just last week, we worked with our colleagues in Transparency International London to ensure that we mobilize the British government to return money that was meant to buy arms and ammunition, but some wicked public official in Nigeria siphoned that money, shared the money. And you see that in the Auditor General last report, he showed how some arms and ammunition that Nigeria purchased that were supposed to be brought to the country, nobody can account for them. So the citizens continue to suffer incredible insecurity and attack. And this is simply because people who are being entrusted with public funds to deal with issues of insecurity, they are not bothered to do that because they believe they have a rented protection. They believe that once they find themselves in power, they do not need to work out a system that will protect and secure the nation. So it is absolutely necessary that we continue to draw the attention of our country leadership to take necessary steps to protect citizens against corruption because of its damning consequences. Ladies and gentlemen, published exclusively in Nigeria by Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC, the National Chapter of Transparency International, TI, the index revealed that Nigeria scored 25 out of 100 points in 2023 Corruption Perception Index, compared to 24 points in the year 2022. Corruption Perception Index, while Nigeria ranks 145 out of 180 countries, compared to 150 on the 2022 Corruption Perception Index results. Nigeria's score is below the sub-Saharan African average of 33 points. Most African countries show stagnation. 90% of countries in sub-Saharan Africa score under 50. This shows that it's a problem that we have both in country and at the regional level, that we have to wake up to ensure that we do everything possible to defeat corruption and corrupt practices. And you could see many reasons why these are happening. Political corruption is in the increase, and when you loot the nation and you are rewarded with the appointment, definitely you will continue to do business as usual. So in the whole region of the sub-Saharan Africa, we have commonalities. And you recall that in West Africa is blessed with both human and natural resources. Our natural resources, unfortunately, has not turned to be a blessing largely because of the corruption, inefficiency, and what have you. So at both national and regional level, we have a lot of work to do in order to create conducive atmosphere where development can strive, where really democracy and electoral transparency can actually happen. You cannot experience democracy, you cannot experience lack of insecurity, you cannot experience development, you cannot experience a system that will boost our economy when you have corruption all over around you. The Corruption Perception Index for Nigeria aggregation data from the 8 different sources that provide perception by country experts and business people on the level of corruption in public sector. And again, it is important to mention that this Corruption Perception Index is also about public sector corruption. It is not a measurement of any organization or any even government effort. So for this year, there are 8 sources that Nigeria actually experts built on their own sources were measured. And these are reputable organizations across the world, of which some of them, Nigeria is even a member of those institutions. As you can see that you have World Justice Project Rule of Law Index, which look at the level of corruption even in the judiciary. You will agree with me, the situation we have in our judiciary is something that really calls for serious attention in terms of reforms and restoring the integrity of our judicial system. You also have World Economic Forum Executive Opinion Survey, which, like I mentioned, some of these sources, Nigeria is part and parcel of it. Another source that was used was, of course, the World Bank Country Policy and Institutional Assessment. This is also, Nigeria is also a member of the World Bank. You have varieties of democracy projects, which also look at political parties, look at election, how we conduct our election, how we conduct our political parties' activism, in the country. They look at how Nigeria fare on those issues. You also have PRA's International Country Risk Guide. Another source was Global Insight Country Risk Rating. And then, of course, the Economic Intelligence Unit Country Rating. Lastly, you have a Bertelsmann Foundation Transformation Index. These are the 8 sources in which Transparency International computes and look at the different rating they have done to Nigeria. So Transparency International, or CISLA, did not sit down to do this rating, but we rely on these credible global institutions that have been proven to be reputable, that have been proven to be one of the best institutions when it comes to index and rating. While the index does not show specific instances of corruption in country, it indicates the perception of corruption in Nigeria. The index is impartial, objective, and globally acknowledged as the most widely used cross-country parameter for measuring corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, in this year's Corruption Perception Index release, it is important to highlight that this is not an assessment of Nigerian anti-corruption agencies, which are making commendable efforts in the fight against corruption in Nigeria. We partner with the various anti-corruption agencies in this country to support the effort they are making, because we believe that they are making huge sacrifice. They sacrifice their life to go after corrupt people, and definitely they deserve commendation. They deserve support, and we and civil society, we will continue to support the effort that they are making. They face a number of challenges, including interferences, including also watering down their efforts. They prosecute, they use effort, time, and energy to go after corrupt people. They take them to court. Sometimes some of the corrupt people have their link with judicial official, and the effort of the anti-corruption agencies will be defeated in the court when there are clear evidences of looting by some of these people. And they risk their life, because if they do all this and then the corrupt people even sometimes get jail, but executive order to pardon them, it means that you are putting the operators, the EFCC, ICPC, and the rest of the anti-corruption agencies personnel at risk. Because if they do all this, they even go to the conclusion of getting some of these people, put in prison, and then political interference and control will now come to release those people. You are actually jeopardizing the good effort that these people are doing. And sometimes they get bullied, they get attacked. So definitely we sympathize with their effort. We sympathize with the patriotic commitment they are making in the country. And therefore, they are our partners in progress in order to defeat corruption and corrupt practices in Nigeria. So the data used for the corruption perception index is not collected like earlier on mentioned by CISLA or TI, but by independent, reputable organization with rigorous research methodologies. The Corruption Perception Index is highly consequential as government, business entity, civil society organization, and other direct their decision based on this assessment. It is important to highlight that this is the first corruption perception index under this administration. Therefore, it will be used as a benchmark for subsequent years, how the government take the advices that we are going to read out to block leakages, to carry out preventive measures before even the corruption happens, will determine whether in the subsequent corruption perception index result, whether Nigeria can actually make the necessary and the needed progress. So we would definitely provide advices and suggestions, recommendations to government in order to look at some of the either legal lapses or operational lapses or compliance lapses or enforcement lapses, or even other preventive measures that can actually improve the rating of Nigeria, particularly when it comes to issues of public service delivery. Nigerians suffer in the hands of wicked public officials. To renew or to get a driving license, you know what you will face. To get passport, you know what you are going to get. To get admission in the university, you know what you are going to get. To get any public service in this country, even to get job in this country, you know what you encounter. Not talk about the extortion by some security agencies. Notwithstanding the good effort that some of the security agencies are doing, because we also commend the work that particularly the security agencies are doing in some instances, but they need to do more in order to restore confidence of the citizens against outright extortion that Nigerians face almost every time they are encountering some of these public officials. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to hand over to the rest of the panelists to take on.
That showed some improvement and areas where gaps persist. Some of the positive points include: one, that's the area of strength. One, the launch of the beneficial ownership register. In May 2023, the Nigerian government launched its open central register of beneficial ownership, which is also known as the Persons with Significant Control PSC register, having passed a Companies and Allied Matters Act, CAMA 2020, which supports its establishment. So this was also in line with Nigeria's commitment in the London 2016 Anti-Corruption Summit. While the launch of this register does not solve the challenge of procurement fraud in public contracting through the use of corporate vehicles and companies by politicians, it was a step in the right direction. To this effect, we are calling on the government through the Corporate Affairs Commission to ensure that this register is updated with information on persons who have significant interest in companies. It is also paramount for the various anti-corruption agencies to work with the information in this register, which is actionable intelligence. Above all, citizens must have unfettered access to this register. In summary, the call is just for us to operationalize this register. As they say, a law is only as good as its level of implementation. A law that is not implemented is a dead law. So the call here is for all stakeholders, the CAC and the anti-corruption agencies, to operationalize, and citizenry too should continue in their demand for operationalizing this register. So it's going to be a veritable tool for fighting corruption in the country if we all make best use of it. So another strength that has been identified is the vibrant media, civil society, and citizenry in demanding transparency and accountability. The media, civil society, and citizens have become key pillars of Nigeria's democracy. The trio, through their complementary efforts, have constantly put the Nigerian government on its toes through the constant highlight of issues militating against the national interest of the country. CISLAC TI Nigeria recognizes this effort, and we would like to encourage those from this concerned constituency to continue this approach. So as media persons, journalists, all we need to do is also to enhance our capacity, understanding government policies, understanding the law, so that we can demand the implementation of those laws. If we do not have the capacity in terms of knowledge, courage, and understanding of the legal framework of all of these things, it will be very difficult for us to demand accountability, and it will also be very difficult for us to enlighten the public, the Nigerian people, to also demand accountability from their leaders. So it's very important. Nigerian journalists have a big role to play. CSOs who also engage directly with governors, interface with government and the public, to also have very, very important role to play in this regard. So the third strength, which is the last point that was addressed as what Nigeria did right in the year, is that there were arrests and recoveries by anti-corruption agencies. So there have been arrests and recoveries of proceeds of crime by Nigeria's anti-corruption agencies. For example, the ICPC, through its constituency and executive project tracking initiative, has recovered billions of naira in diverted constituency and executive projects. Furthermore, the investigation of a handful of present and past public officials by the EFCC provides a ray of hope. However, it is important to highlight that these agencies need to thoroughly investigate and prosecute high-profile individuals without political interference. I think this point needs to be stressed about the initiative adopted by the outgone chairman of ICPC, that's Professor Bolaji Owasanwi. It was a very huge stride that they made in terms of recovery to this constituency project tracking. But the problem is that I've seen in it is that of the major of all the recoveries they have made, indictments of public officers, legislators, federal lawmakers, none of them has been brought to book. None of them has even been charged in court. So I think it shouldn't stop at just recovering money from them. It shouldn't just stop at highlighting it in the public that this has been recovered. There is a need to hold them accountable. There is a need to take further steps to file charges against these individuals that have been found to have committed infraction of the law. So I'm going to end there and hand over to my co-panelists to
dash the hope of Nigerians, most especially those of the young population, which were really excited to come out to vote in 2023. But now we're not sure what will happen in the next elections. But they were hoping for a better electoral process. As we all know, most of them have jackpot, so we don't know what the electorate or the population for 2027 will look like. Despite passing the 2022 Electoral Act, this had also laid the foundation and the hopes which citizens had. According to the European Union Observation Mission, in their report, it was stated that the 2023 elections did not ensure a well-run, transparent, and inclusive democratic process as assured by the Independent National Electoral Commission. Public confidence and trust in INEC were severely damaged during the presidential poll and was not restored at the state-level elections. This performance by the Nigerian electoral umpire saw numerous litigations, cases being sent to courts in Nigeria. It's no longer news again that what we know as a cliche is go to court. We don't know if our votes will count or will count in the future, or the courts will decide our ballots. But this calls for concern on the review of the Electoral Act. The poor performance of the election fails to justify the huge resources allocated to INEC for the conduct of the elections. Again, it's no longer news if INEC conducts free, fair, and credible election, or we just say we conduct elections. These times, we don't know if elections are free, we don't know if it is fair, or if it is credible. The second weakness we have here is judicial corruption. Still referencing the 2023 elections, the Nigerian judiciary was expected to display independence and dispatch justice transparently, as well as in equity and fairness. However, different conflicting rulings by the different courts have questioned the independence and integrity of the judiciary as an institution. This has thrown up the discussion on the need for effective judicial oversight. Reinforcing this was Justice Musa Datijo Mohammed, retired, who was the second most senior justice in the Nigerian Supreme Court and was the deputy chairman of the National Judicial Council. In his valedictory session in October 2023, the retired justice highlighted the abuse of power in the judiciary and the absence of adequate representation in the nation's Supreme Court, amongst other challenges, which need to be resolved for the judiciary to win the total trust of citizens. Just like my colleague have also mentioned about cases that involved legislators and ICPC. We're also seeing this as a weakness, and we call for partnership, collaboration to see that we can work together with this to create a resolve. The third weakness is the corruption in the security sector. Just to start, I'm not sure if a couple of us heard the allegation against the chief of naval staff on $170 million oil bunkering bribe just a couple of days ago. But while that is still in the news, the defense and security sector has accounted for 13.4% of the national budget. Over the years, security budget has been the highest, if not the last 3 years across the years, which is about twice the sum of the next two sectors, talking about education, which is 8.2, and infrastructure, which is 5.7. However, the security situation of the country continues to be a challenge, and the corruption in this sector is worrisome. The primary aim of the government is to protect the life and property of citizens. We no longer know if that is priority, even in Abuja as we see it. Most of us, we don't go out as usual because of the security situation, which has dampened. In 2023 October, the military court-martial sitting in Abuja sentenced a major general to 7 years imprisonment for stealing, forgery, misappropriation, and conspiracy. He was also ordered to refund the amount of $2 million and 1.69 billion naira. This is likely one of the incidents out of many which makes it to the news or makes it to the headlines. Corruption in the security sector is worrisome because aside its impact on the peaceful coexistence of citizens, it also impacts the economy with over 400,000 barrels of crude oil stolen daily as stated by the National Security Advisor. This gives us the question mark on the security situation and the corruption that happens in that sector in Nigeria. Continuous corruption and wasteful expenditure in the security sector are likely to determine the success or failure of the development objectives of this new administration. Like we said, we are still open to collaboration and seeing that we solve some of these weaknesses together. Thank you very much.
We saw the CISLAC saw within the last 1 year. And one of them now, in continuity with what he said, is that we know research has shown that the greatest antidote to anti-corruption is openness and transparency. And numerous public institutions in Nigeria are yet to fully comply with the Freedom of Information Act, the Open Government Partnership, the Transparency and Integrity Index, and other international commitments Nigeria has signed on to. Information surrounding key contracts in the oil and gas sector, the infrastructure sector, and the social protection sector, amongst others, are not proactively provided to citizens. The anti-corruption agencies also need to provide information on data on their arrests, investigations, and prosecutions, especially of politically exposed persons and high-profile individuals, as well as give information on the proceeds of crime they recover in line with the Proceeds of Crime Management Act 2022. The next point is on wasteful expenditure. Last year, we saw the removal of fuel subsidy, popularly known as Premium Motor Spirit, which is PMS, and this led to a 220% increase in the price of PMS. In spite of this, public office holders in Nigeria have failed to show empathy or concern for citizens' plight. Rather, we have seen wasteful appropriation and approval of billions of naira for luxury items. If you have a cursory look at the 2024 budget, you clearly see that what they have simply done is to balloon the recurrent expenditure to take care of themselves, especially the government-owned enterprises, meaning they have covered the loss, in quote, of what they have done by the increase of the PMS to cover of their own size while leaving citizens to fend for themselves. Another weakness that we have recognized is the appointment and nomination of individuals with corrupt and questionable acts of the past into leadership positions at the political level, political party level, the executive level, and the legislative arms of government. And these are worrisome because the whole world is looking at the kind of people and the integrity of kind of people we put in political and other leadership positions. So the nomination of and our own integrity. And lastly, the failure to prosecute high-profile cases. Every evaluator, regulator, such as the Financial Action Task Force and the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, when they are analyzing how deep you combat public sector corruption, they look at the number of high-profile cases you have, not the other low-hanging fruits that are very easy to arrest and convict and send to prison. How many people, how many politically exposed persons have you convicted in the last year? It's a clear assessment when they're evaluating a country. So, as there have been several allegations of corruption in present and past administrations, while the anti-corruptions have been doing a lot, as said by Mr. Awad of Sanjani, there's also need to ensure that all petitions, actionable intelligence, and mostly, especially, investigations of, by reputable media and civil society organizations are looked into. For example, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation has been subject of numerous scandals since it was established a few years ago by the last government. There are other ministers, past and present, who have allegations of corruption against them, and we call on the relevant agencies, and particularly the political will, to ensure a comprehensive investigation is carried out. Thank you.
Thanks for checking out SYMFONI on YouTube. Please be sure to subscribe and like our videos for updates.